Hi, hello, how's it going? Today I'm going to be sharing some easy room DIYs that I use myself to decorate my room and organize my life. I spend a lot of time in my room, so I think it's important that this space reflects my interests and I enjoy being in here. First up is this simple wall calendar. I created a simple grid on my computer in Pages, turned down the opacity a little, and made the lines really thin. The grid is 7 boxes across and 5 boxes down, which works for almost every month, though occasionally I'll have to tack on a few extra days at the bottom. I find that adding an extra row to incorporate the rare extra days shrinks the other boxes too much for my personal use. If you don't have access to a computer or printer, you can also hand draw in this grid, which would take longer but look virtually the same. Yes, you could buy a calendar and hang that on your wall, but making one is so much easier, and I like getting a chance to use my lettering skills for the header. It's fun to choose the color scheme for each month, and while I kept it simple, you could easily doodle or add stickers or washi tape to the border of the grid to make things more interesting. Once I'm done with the basic outline, I'll go back in with a pen and fill in the dates with events that I already know of. This helps to relieve some anxiety because then I know exactly when things are and how much time I have to get stuff done. I usually get really focused on the short term and I stress myself out that way, so doing this really helps relieve that stress and show me that I actually have plenty of time to get things done. So to finish off the calendar, I use command hanging hooks and binder clips to hang them on my wall. I really like this system because the clear hooks are not very noticeable and it's removable as well if I ever decide that I don't actually want a calendar in that particular spot, or I don't like the look of it at all and just want to remove it. And that's the finished DIY. This one's super simple, but seriously, it's a lifesaver for me to have. The next DIY that I want to share with you is how to make art for a gallery wall. Gallery walls are super popular right now. You see them in so many different Pinterest rooms and on Instagram, and they're really easy to make. I don't use frames, I just use pictures and washi tape, and you can put whatever you want on your walls. Here I'm showing you 2 different DIYs that I like to do. I think gallery walls are even more special when you make the art yourself, so here I'm going to be showing you how I do that. The first piece of art is a hand-lettered quote. I have these old Brandy Melville cards. I ordered from them 6 years ago and they sent me a package of postcards along with the order. I don't like the pictures on the postcards. They're all of white girls and I won't get into it, but I think there's not enough diversity in the brand and I haven't bought from them ever since. But the postcards are a really nice thick cardstock and I like the faded black on the back. So that's what I've been using in my room a lot for quotes because I like the contrast with a white pen and the way that I can use colored pencils to draw on it as well. I chose a quote that I've been liking recently: small actions repeated over time transform us. This kind of goes back to the calendar, but I have a tendency to look really short term, and when I get motivated I try to do everything in one day and burn myself out. So it's a good reminder for me to know that what I do in one day doesn't matter that much, but what I do over a repeated number of days is what's really going to have an impact on my life. I use these quotes as a reminder for myself, as motivation, or ones that I just like looking at on my wall. I'll decorate the quote. I used stickers in this one and colored pencils, but you can use whatever you have. The next thing that I made for my wall is a pressed flower postcard. I don't really know what to call this. It's not a postcard and it's not just a pressed flower, but I guess I'll go with that. I love the look of pressed flowers. I like bringing a piece of spring or summer or home into my room, and the only problem I have with them is that they're really fragile. So my solution was to laminate the flower. It actually worked really well, and I will be doing this with more flowers in the future, but it's a great way to preserve a single flower without having to glue it onto a background or have it fall apart. I went around my room and I gathered some other art prints, Polaroids, quotes, and drawings that I've done and added some washi tape to them. Then I went to my wall and I hung it up. When hanging my gallery wall, I usually like to start with my biggest image first in the center and build off that. This one isn't my favorite. I will probably go back and move things around, but it was an awkward angle when I was trying to film and not get my body in it, so bear with me there, but it's not terrible. It works for now. I love this DIY because there's so many ways that you can personalize it for yourself. Everyone's lives look different and your gallery wall should too. I actually mentioned this part of my room in my Common App essay for colleges because I felt that it really represented me. This is just one section of my room, but on the other walls I also have more pictures hung up, and they're pictures of the outdoors, of adventures, of other quotes I like, of art that I've made or art that friends have made for me, pictures of good times in my life. It just makes me happy and it shows where my values are at. Maybe that's getting too deep into a gallery wall, but I think it's really cool how I'm able to put so much of me into my space. This third DIY is probably the hardest one, but my favorite out of the whole bunch. It's how to make paper cacti. You're going to need some basic craft supplies for this, but if you don't have them at home, they're really easy to find at your local craft store or on Amazon. The first thing that you're going to do is decide the shape of your cactus. I wanted to make a short, fat, rounder cactus, so I cut out a shorter, fatter circle for my cactus body. If you want a taller, narrower cactus, then cut out the shape that you want your cactus to be. Just make sure that when you fold the piece in half, both sides are identical to each other. So you're going to cut 4 circles or shapes with a fold in the middle for the outside of the cactus. And then you're going to take some white cardstock and trace your older pieces and then cut just around the edge with a pair of zigzag scissors or freehand it. These are going to be your thorns. And you want them beyond the trace line so that they peek out when you sandwich the pieces together to form your cactus. Next, you're going to glue the pieces together. So you're going to apply some hot glue to half of a cactus piece, put the white thorn piece on top, and then glue another cactus piece on top of that. So you're making like a sandwich slash ball of cactus pieces, if that makes sense. If not, just watch what I'm doing. You'll see eventually you're trying to build this 3D cactus shape. When you're on your last step, take a piece of wire and glue it into the center of your cactus. This is what you're going to use to attach your cactus to the pot later on. And then glue the last sides together and you're done with your cactus body. That part's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. There's not that many pieces to keep track of and you don't even really need hot glue for it. In fact, it would probably work better if you didn't have hot glue, just so everything sandwiches nicer together without being lumpy. But I had my hot glue out, so I just used that anyway. The next part is completely optional. This is where it gets a little trickier. To make the flower, you're going to take your paper and cut 8 petals out of it. I just folded the paper back and forth, so I only have to make 1 or 2 cuts, but you could cut one petal out and then trace it over and over again if you want to be more precise. Take the 8 petals and make 2 groups of 4. In the first group, cut a 1/4 inch slit at the bottom, and in the second group, cut a 1/2 inch slit at the bottom. It doesn't need to be these exact measurements, just one of the slits has to be twice as long as the other. This is how you're going to make an outer layer of petals and an inner layer of petals in your flower. Then you're going to take the 2 ends of the slit, put a dot of glue on one end, and fold the other end over that to make a 3D petal shape. It's a little tricky, but do your best to finagle it and make it work. Once you've done that to all the petals, you're going to assemble the flower. Put a dot of glue on the edge of one petal and attach another petal, going around in a circle until your flower is complete. It should kind of look like a 4-leaf clover at this point, just with raised sides. To make the center of the flower, take a sheet of yellow cardstock or whatever color you want, cut little slits on one end, making sure to not cut all the way through, and then roll the strip together to make the center. I tried adding a wire at this point, but it didn't work out, so don't do that and wait till later to do that part. Next, you're going to glue your flower together. I started by gluing the center to the second smallest group of petals, and then I glued that in the largest group of petals to form a flower. Then I took a small piece of wire and glued that to the bottom of the flower. While that was drying, I got my pot ready. I cut some old foam that I have, but anything squishy should work for this. And I put the foam into my mini flower pot. I bought some really cheap decorative rocks at the craft store for this. You could use rocks you find outside or little pebbles, but just whatever you have to cover up the foam. I put that around the edges of the pot, stuck in my cactus, and then filled the rest of the pot with pebbles to cover up the foam and add some decoration. The last thing to do is to attach your flower to the top of the cactus. This part is super easy, just stick your wire down the middle. If you want to make it extra sturdy, you can put a dot of glue to hold it in place, but I just left it there because I'm not really going to be moving my cactus around. And that's this DIY. You can experiment with this in many different ways, cut different shapes of cacti, and create your own little succulent garden out of paper. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if you decide to try any of these DIYs. I would love to see it, and I'll see you in my next video.